morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Mobile App Academy, where we show you how to build and configure mobile apps live on the Now platform. My name, as always, is Charlie Steiner, product marketer here at ServiceNow. And today, David and Fu will be walking you through how to build a consolidated employee self-service experience for mobile. If you're joining us for the first time, I want to welcome you first off. Thank you for joining us today. This is a live building series that focuses on managing and building out mobile apps in real time. Our product experts are here to provide guidance, best practices, and answer your questions, whether live or in the chat. And we host these sessions every 2 weeks here on Zoom at 10 a.m. Pacific on Tuesdays. And our recordings are posted on YouTube to our YouTube playlist Thursday morning Pacific time as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this session and how we can improve going forward, whether here in the chat or on our mobile apps and platform community channel. Let us know your feedback. Love to hear it. Before we get into today's session, I just want to run you all through a few resources that, if you're not aware, we do have available on our community channel and our YouTube channel. If you're new to mobile, we recommend you check out some of our enablement resources. You can see down here in the bottom right, such as our mobile guidebooks and white papers. We also have a plethora of other resources that you can find on our community, like labs, mobile training, those will be on Now Learning, and our YouTube playlist with all our previous recordings. So make sure you subscribe to our Now community channel to not miss a recording. We, in fact, just recently posted our webinar from last week on the Quebec release. So if you missed that, be sure to check that out on our YouTube channel. The link will be in the chat. One more thing to note is if you like these sessions, our teams also host Academy sessions for Virtual Agent, HR, and Performance Analytics, which you can find in their respective community forums. So be sure to check them out as well. Our fellow teams here at ServiceNow do great work. And finally, knowledge is just around the corner. We're really excited. Our teams have been putting in a lot of work and a lot of effort to get prepared for this year. And registration is open and free this year. So be sure to sign up. We have a lot of new exciting labs and breakout sessions that will be taking place the week of May 11th and the following week. So if you're interested in getting a sneak preview at some of the new things coming out from mobile, or just seeing how they work, like Mobile Card Builder, for instance, that recently came out in Quebec, definitely make sure to register for that lab and check out our other sessions. Want to know what else is coming from mobile? We got you covered there as well. We posted an article in our community channel that'll list out all the breakout sessions, labs, demos, and anything else that we have coming from mobile. So be sure to check that out. Alrighty then. With all that being said, let us know if you have any questions. Those links will be in the chat. I'll get to them shortly. But David Haw, Senior Product Manager on the mobile team, get us started.
Thanks for the intro, Charlie. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to our Mobile App Academy. My name is David Haw, and I'm an outbound product manager here at ServiceNow. I also have Fu Ho with me, who's a solution architect on the mobile team here at ServiceNow as well. And we want to give a warm welcome to everyone joining us live here today. And for today's topic, we're going to be covering building a consolidated employee self-service experience for mobile. So we're really addressing some of the common questions that we hear from customers who sometimes have several portal experiences on platform. And they're trying to figure out, how do we get started with their Now mobile deployment, right? And a great prerequisite for today's live session is one of our earlier app academies we hosted just 2 weeks ago called Getting Started with Now Mobile in Paris, in which we showed some of the new enhancements in Paris. And that allows you to enhance your catalog experience on Now Mobile. And Charlie can send a link to the Zoom chat in case you haven't already seen it. So we'll take some of the knowledge from that session and build upon it and show you a few other things that might help you through your Now Mobile implementation. Okay. So again, the goal for today is to talk about how you can deploy your Now Mobile app to support your various portal experiences across different departments, such as IT and HR, and how you can do some of that basic and minor configurations. And this is really important to many customers today because organizations might not always have like a dedicated team to support a very custom and dev-heavy implementation. And your goal might just be to roll out a very simple mobile app that takes advantage of the out-of-the-box capabilities, but you might just need to fill in a few gaps to get it running. But before we get into the actual configuration, let's talk through a few things that you might want to consider before deploying your Now mobile app. And first and foremost, what you should consider is whether this is a department-specific deployment, or is it for both IT and HR, right? We have customers that use just our ITSM product, some customers that use just the HR service delivery product, but then you also have customers who have both. And for those type of customers, they typically have like a single portal that employees can go for both of those areas. But in other cases, they might have separate portals with separate experiences. And so in the case where customers have a single consolidated portal experience, you're actually in the best situation to go live with the Now Mobile app out of the box. The out of the box Now Mobile experience is likely already exposing a lot of the things that you already need, or maybe even all of it. It gives you access to your approvals, your service catalogs, knowledge bases, and so forth. And it's likely that those internal teams are already talking to each other or sharing a single entry point, which also aligns with your out of the box Now Mobile experience. On the other hand, we also have customers who have separate sites for different departments, such as having one portal for IT and one portal for HR on platform. So what are those some initial things that you can do to improve your out of the box Now experience? And what would it look like if you started with the IT product for Now Mobile and then added HR to it? But what I want to point out here is, there does need to be a little bit of coordination and collaboration between your internal groups before you deploy anything new in Now Mobile, because you want to make sure it's a consistent experience, right? You want to make sure that you're bucketing things in a consistent way so that you're not creating fragmented experiences for your customers to navigate through. So you do want to make sure that you have both groups at the table when you're deploying this self-service experience for Now Mobile. The other thing that to think about is from a consolidated employee self-service experience is, what are you trying to support? What is it that you want to expose to your employees from a mobile capability standpoint? And typically, the most important use cases that you would find it would be on your employee self-service center or whatever portal that you have. Whether it's for IT or HR, the most important things are typically the same things or very similar. Employees just want to get help. They want to have access to their knowledge bases, have access to their catalog items and approvals. And it should be consistent for both IT and HR. You shouldn't have to be building a bunch of different tabs just for different departments. But really, it's trying to find those commonalities of major use cases that all your groups needs and to prioritize those use cases. And as you can see here, many of the things that employees need today are already covered out of the box when you download the Now Mobile plugin. You can see that we didn't migrate everything over from this employee self-service service center. Just the important ones that employees would want to actually do on a mobile device. Things like system status would be totally irrelevant on mobile, so we left those untouched. But for cases where customers have two different portals, the out of the box might not cover all the things that you would need. So you would need to fill in those gaps. So it's just a matter of identifying them and then migrating them over. Okay. And so with those considerations in mind, how do we get started? We're going to start with an out of the box experience for Now Mobile, but I will only have my ITSM product enabled first. So I'll still have access to my requests, my service catalogs and knowledge, but it's all going to be for IT. And then I'm going to show you what it looks like when I enable the HR service delivery experience and how that content will roll through my Now Mobile app. My applets and applet launchers will still stay the same, but I'll have new content inside of them that will provide me access to my HR requests, HR catalogs, and HR KVs as well. And from there, we'll start to make some modifications to our out-of-the-box experience to make sure that our mobile experience aligns with what our employees would need from both their IT and HR portals. Okay. So once I enable the HR service delivery product for Now Mobile, maybe there's some requests that were left out of the box, and so I'll show you how to enable that. How you can, and also how you can add and update fields to those mobile screens. Or maybe there's some service catalogs that I don't see, but I should be expecting from one of my departments. Where would I check to make sure it's enabled and that it's properly showing on my Now Mobile app? And is there any way for me to reorder my catalogs for a better catalog browsing experience? So we'll definitely show that as well. Or maybe, my KVs are missing for HR. Where should I check to make sure that they're working? And are you aware of some of the limitations that exist today? So we'll go through that as well. And then also, we'll take a look at our employee self-service center on desktop and see if there's any other major use cases that we would want to migrate to the Now Mobile that's not available out of the box, right? And I'll walk you through the steps of what it would look like to expose something that we would want from the platform over to mobile. Okay, so we'll configure each one of these and I'll show you what the intended experience will look like on mobile. So let's go ahead and jump into our instance and configure the first use case. So we're going to jump over to our instance and we're going to configure the first use case. How do we align my request for Now Mobile? So, if I had a portal for HR and a portal for IT, I would need to check Now Mobile to make sure that my employees have everything that they would need from both portals, right? So from the IT side, we would want to make sure that that they have access to all their requested items in my open instance, for example. And maybe from the HR side, we want to make sure that they also have access to their HR task. But they're not opening up two different applets just to get that information. It all rolls through the same applet, but you'll be able to see that information through this one applet. If we take a look at the out-of-the-box Now Mobile app, it seems that we only have access to, oh, it looks like I have instance already in here, but I actually want to remove that. So let me go and do that real fast. But out of the box, I think you only would see requested items or your rhythms. So let me go ahead and remove that real fast for Now Mobile. Okay, so now if I refresh, I should really only see request items. There it is. Okay, so this is what I was expecting. All right. And so, if there's a couple items that are missing that we need, it needs to be filled in for my request. How would we go about adding those new type of requests? And to get started, we're going to first look and open up my request filters on my left-hand nav. And I'm kind of already on that, but left-hand nav, look for Now Mobile, and then open up my request filters. And here, you'll find all the filters that your instance is currently applying to pull in data from my request. For HR, out of the box, you should already see a request filter for open HR cases. But if you're not seeing it appear on mobile, this is actually a great place to double check to make sure. And we can see that this record is currently set to false. So let's go ahead and jump into this filter and set it to true. Right, and you can see the conditions here. I think there's, so it looks like there's a script that's likely looking for all open HR cases opened by the user that's logged in. We won't touch that, but just know that you can adjust your filters and conditions here. So let's go ahead and just set this to active and then click update. Okay, should have gone through and set to true. Okay, so if we've now refreshed our Now Mobile client, we should now see all the open HR cases that have been opened by me. And this would complete the requirements that our employees would need for the HR side. Right, so if I click see all, I should see some HR cases. Let's see, my HR case set is true. So let's check on platform to make sure that I actually have an HR case. So if we look at opened, we do have one open for David. Let's create another one just in case. David, which is my login user. It's our HR case, general inquiry, and then we'll click create case. Say the agent's already working on it, but I should be able to refresh and see my HR request. That's weird. Huh. Let's check my request filters again real fast. Active is true. HR case is open. Let's see. Fu, what do you think? Am I missing anything that stands out to you?
So what? So this is the filter, right?
Yep.
Sorry, I was just answering questions. And it's calling a script, right?
Right. I did see an error thing earlier.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah.
I didn't know you can actually call that. Is that
Yeah,
out
I
of the
mean, this
box?
was built out of the box, and it should work out of the box.
Okay.
I think on my instance, it was just set to false. But if you were to set this to true, which I did test earlier this morning, it should have worked. Not sure why it's not calling through though. Oh, you know what? One more thing that I would like to check to troubleshoot. I'd probably look at the backend tables to make sure that this is pulling through. So if I look at Apple launchers, for Now Mobile, I'm going to find this specific applet in item stream. So I'm going to go into the app launcher. And I'll explain this as I'm going through it, but just to make sure I'm troubleshooting real fast so we can move on. I'm going to jump to where this item stream was. Okay, so it does show up. That is weird. I'll try one more thing. I'm gonna log out and log back in, which shouldn't affect it, but okay. Let's refresh. Oh, okay. That's interesting. I'm gonna test another filter. Let's see if we look up Now Mobile. Let's create a new filter. So this is a great troubleshooting example, right? So if there's any out of the box filter that's not working as you would intend it to, you can just create a new filter right too, right? This kind of just serves as a baseline, but maybe your intention is to sort through all of your open HR cases. So we'll just call this one HR cases that are open, all right? And it's gonna pull from the HR case table. I think it's this one, but let me double check. If I duplicate this tab and look at HR cases, do I have the right table? HR open. This is SN HR core. Okay, so we actually want this second one here. And then we're just gonna set the filter as HR case open. Is dynamically me. And then we'll submit. And it says we have an error here. Table selecting on data item record. Tables application. Oh, you know what? It's because I'm building in the wrong scope. So maybe that's probably why. So if I were to switch scopes, maybe that will fix the issue. So let's switch to the scope that they want us to, which is human resources core. And I would assume that this probably didn't work because it's in the wrong scope. Yep. So let's try this. HR cases core, human resources core. Okay. So now if I open up my request filters, and if I were to set this and update this in the correct scope, let's first set it to false. Wait, invalid table, HR case, application, human resource scope, human resource mobile. It says the current application is current human resources mobile. What is this one? Save. Okay, there we go. Now we're in the right scope. So if I set this to active and then click save, will that fix the issue? HR case table. Core. Open. Refresh. Okay, so I'm in core. Click cancel. Fu, am I reading this incorrectly? So this record is in the human resources mobile application, but my scope is human resources core. So I don't want to switch this to the human resources mobile scope,
Yep.
right? So I'm
Yep.
going to do that,
Okay.
and then I'm going to refresh to make sure I'm good. Now, if I set this to false and click save, I then get an error that says this table is in the human resources core. That doesn't make sense, right? Okay, so it just looks like this table is kind of finicky. So we can probably use another example. So instead, what if we want to bring an instance, which isn't a request that's currently showing up right now? So let's do that instead, just because we need to move on to the next exercise. So on Now Mobile, let's say that one of my employees' requirements was to also show instance in my request table. So I would just create a new filter. I don't think there's any background business rules that would prevent me from being able to make an update to that table. So this should kind of roll through smoothly. So I'm going to look for open instance by this user. It's going to pull from the instance table. And the open by is going to be dynamically by me. Okay. And then we'll submit. Although this is currently pointing to the wrong scope. So I'm going to switch over to the correct scope. Let's discard. I think the correct scope would be catalog screens and app launcher. Okay. So let's build it in the catalog screens and app launcher. Let's create another one. Open instance by me. Pulling from the instant table. And open by is dynamic. Okay, so now if I submit, I should be able to refresh my request applet and should see those incidents. There we go. Okay, so I think there was just some business rule that I'm not sure what's happening on the HR table, but just know that this can be applied for, the concept remains the same. This can be applied for any table, whether you're in the the customer service department or in the HR department. This is kind of how you bring in new requests for Now Mobile. Okay. The next thing that I want to show is we want to show how do we then configure fields on this screen, right? So you have your cards on a list view, and then you also have fields inside the details. But because we're configuring the out-of-the-box Now Mobile client, we can't use Mobile Studio, right? So we've discussed in previous videos that out-of-the-box Now Mobile, you have to kind of use the platform UI and the backend tables if you want to configure anything. This is something that our internal teams are working on, and in upcoming releases, the developer experience for Now Mobile will be easier over time. But as of today, we have to rely on using the platform UI and really understanding the mobile hierarchy. And this is kind of where it's useful to really know our mobile hierarchy in order to navigate the platform UI. And so Charlie can send a link in the chat to our mobile hierarchy video if you're interested in seeing a deep dive on the backend tables and how to make sense of them. But essentially, to explain what's going on here is each one of these different table records represents a different item stream. And I would have to open up each item stream and go to the master item if I want to configure any fields on these cards. Or if I want to configure the fields in the form, then I would have to do that on the embedded screen. So let me go ahead and show you how to do that now. And we'll use instant as an example. So if I want to change a field on the instant card, I would first start by opening up my Now Mobile app launcher on the left-hand nav. And then I know that this My Request applet lives on the For Me tab. And the For Me tab is is actually named the homepage for app launchers. So we'll go and click into our homepage app launcher. And here in the body of my app launcher, you can see all the different UI sections that I have. I have a UI section for my request and my UI section for my to-dos. These two sections are currently set to false, so that's why they're not showing up. But here are the two sections. And I know that my request applet lives in the my request UI section. So we'll click into this. And then we'll switch into the scope. And then here, you can find my list screen here. So there's inside of this UI section, there contains a destination screen. And this is my request list applet. So we'll jump into that list applet here. And it then takes me to my list screen. And my list screen contains only one item stream segment at the moment. If I had more than one segment, then I would see those actual segments on my list. Similar to how you see segments on a form, right? Each one of these represent a different segment. But because there's only one, if I look at my list applet, you're not actually seeing those segments because there's only one, right? So it's hidden. And then, so if I click into my item stream segment for my request, this will show me all my different item streams. And these item streams are being populated by my request filter. I had a request for incident that was here somewhere. Open instance by me. You also have a filter for requested items. So, and that's right here. And I think these filters are currently set to false, and so they're not currently showing up. So if I want to configure the fields on my incident item stream, I would go and click into that instance. And then we'll jump into the master item. And this represents my incident card. And so if you watched our mobile hierarchy video, this explains all of that and how you would navigate each one of those tables. But essentially on the master item, you have your item view, which controls the JSON of your card. And you have to manually edit the JSON if you want to configure the fields on each one of these cards. And this is also something that our internal teams are working on improving in upcoming releases for Now Mobile. But as of today, this is the current developer experience if you want to modify the fields on your card. So let's click into the item view here. And if I do a control find and look for cell ID, I'm not sure what these universal request fields are, but let's ignore those. The only fields that I'm interested in are the fields that are currently showing up on my card for my list applet, right? So on my list, I have 4 fields, one for in progress, one for number, short description, and then some sort of date field. And I can see that here, right? So you have one for state, one for number, one for short description, and then one for time ago. And let's say that I'm more interested in seeing the priority field as the first field on my card rather than a state field. And so let's go ahead and change this cell ID from state to priority. And then we'll go ahead and click save. And now if I refresh my Now Mobile client, you should be able to see those changes. And there you go. So now it changed to critical for all my incidents because those are all P1 incidents. And then Charlie, if you can send them the link to the UI style for product docs. If you're interested in figuring out how these colors and icons are showing up, these are controlled by your UI styles, which can be found here. I think there was already a UI style out of the box, and so it applied it by default. Okay. So next, what I want to show is, how would you add additional fields in the details screen, which is on your form, right? So if we go back to our master item, you would see here that there's actually an embedded screen. And this embedded screen is your My Request form. So if I open up this form, it'll show you your 2 form screen segments, one for details, which is here, and then one segment for updates, which is just an activity stream, which they renamed to updates. What I'm interested in is adding another field for state, which I removed from the card. And so I'm going to open up details. And in the related list for screen fields, I can actually add a new screen field here. Sometimes you might not see this button because you're not in the correct scope. So if I were to switch this to app screens and app launcher, that button would disappear. So you just got to make sure you're in the correct scope. So catalog screens and app launcher. And we're going to add a new field for state. So we'll click new. Because the data item for this applet is currently pointing to the incident table already, we just have to select our form field from that table. So we'll pick state. We'll set an order of 1 so that it shows up on top. And then we can leave everything else the same. We'll click submit. So now if I refresh and I click into an incident, I should see the state field, but it's not showing up. That's weird. Oh, there it is. I didn't refresh. So now you can see the state is new. But notice that this didn't change. This won't change the fields on your rhythms. If I open up this rhythm, these have completely different fields. And that's because it's controlled by that different item stream, right? So if I go back to applet launchers, click into homepage, my request UI section, my request applet, the item stream segment. Here, you would have to follow the exact same process to change your fields on the rhythm item stream. So you would go through the rhythm, right? Go to the master item. And if there's any fields you'd want to change on this item view, then you can do it there. Or if you want to add an additional field on your details, then you would go to the embedded screen for your form. Okay. And again, if that was kind of confusing, the mobile hierarchy definitely provides a lot of clarity. And we walk through that process much slower so that you can kind of keep up. Okay, so that covers the first use case that we wanted to make sure that, we wanted to align all of my requests for my employees. If you had employees for HR and employees for IT, it's just making sure that the request that you already see on platform is also showing up on mobile, and you can control that with the my request filter. Okay. So let's move on to our second example, and it's how do we align our service catalogs for both IT and HR? And at the moment, if we take a look at our Now Mobile client, I'm currently seeing just my IT catalogs. I'm not seeing any of my HR catalogs like payroll and so forth. So what do we need to check to make sure that they're rolling through properly? And to start, we're going to first look up Now Mobile. You're going to realize that all the tables that you would need for Now Mobile is all here when you search it up. And we're going to open up catalogs. And here, it's going to take you to all your portal catalogs that you have on platform. By default, I have both my IT service catalog and HR catalogs. It's going to be different depending on what your organization has. If there were any other catalogs that your organization does have, but it's not showing, then I would just have to create a new record here. And the most important part is to get it exposed on the Now Mobile client. It's making sure that your catalog is being mapped to our mobile employee service portal, or what we call MESP. If it's not mapped here, then it won't show up. But by mapping it, it's also taking all the web forms from your catalogs and automatically resizing them so that it best fits your end users' mobile screens. MESP will help build a hybrid mobile experience that will look, it will kind of look and feel native, and it will provide that end user a better end user experience. Okay. So it seems like the only reason why HR catalogs aren't showing up is because active is currently set to false. So let's go and set this trigger to true. We'll make sure we're in the correct scope and then set this to active. And if I update, we'll then refresh our mobile client. But also, let's also check, if we dig into the HR catalog, what are those categories that we should be expecting? If we scroll down to categories, looks like we're expecting 7 different categories for payroll, HR systems, right? So now if I refresh my browse services, I should be able to see those. So now I see payroll, HR systems, and so forth. Okay. So now I'm seeing both my catalogs for both of those departments. But right now it looks like it's kind of randomly sorting itself. And if you want to organize your catalogs a bit better, we recently did an App Academy on how you can sort those categories using a new property that was introduced in Paris. And Charlie can share that link in the chat if you'd like to see a deep dive on it. But with this new property, we're now able to order our categories however we want. Maybe you want to see our HR catalogs at the bottom, so, and our IT ones on top. So let's go ahead and set the order of these to looks like I need to switch into the correct scope. So let's jump there. Let's set the order of this to, why is it not letting me change the order? Record is in the human resources core application. If I switch into the scope, I should be able to change this. That's interesting. Any idea, Fu, on why I wouldn't be able to change the order on this? Security prevents writing to this field.
Oh, you're in HR scope, huh?
Yeah, but I mean, if you can definitely set the order for your service catalogs here, for your IT catalogs. I mean, we did this on the last academy. Maybe I'm just in the wrong.
Once you go into the record.
Oh, right. So if I go into the record itself.
No, the I. Let's see.
And then bring the field over. Configure form layout.
Change to, I think, global scope. This record is global scope, so you got to change.
Okay, so I guess we have to set the order here.
Yeah.
So if I gave this 100, and then click save, I would expect this category for template management to go all the way to the bottom. And it's probably because there's no catalog items, or maybe there is. Let's actually find one that we can see here. So software, we'll move software to the bottom. Let's find the software category. Let's give this an order of 1000. Click update. Refresh. And there we go. So software went down to the bottom. There it is. Okay. And if you're wondering if there's any groups of catalogs that might not be showing on your browse services, one place to check is that new properties window. So I would first check, if you look up catalog administration, and this is what we did on our last academy, and you go to properties, there is a filter for mobile, and you can see that there's some catalogs, catalog item classes that are now available on Now Mobile. So if I were to just delete all of these, it would probably show me all my catalogs. But this is also how you can control groups or classes of catalogs that you wouldn't want to show up on mobile. Okay. And something that we are introducing in future releases is, I want to point this out. I've heard from the internal mobile teams that they are working on introducing parent categories. So if you want a parent category that said, one for IT and then one for HR, before it actually showed you the different categories of things like peripherals, payroll, and so forth, that is something that we're hoping to introduce in the next upcoming release. But in the meantime, this is what's possible as of today. You're only able to order your different categories. Okay. So let me go and take a quick break. Fu, were there any major questions?
There were a lot of questions.
A lot of questions.
There were a lot of questions.
Let's answer one for now, and then we'll move on for the rest of the labs. We'll take the rest of them at the end. Okay.
So I'm just gonna ask one.
Okay.
Are there applet names and applet header names for? Wait, are the applet names and applet header name for the applet always the same? Can it be configured? So applet name and applet header. I'm wondering if they're talking about like my request.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, I wonder if they're talking about the sections.
Oh yes, so I think the header is probably like the UI section names and then the applet name itself. So I think a good example of this would be, I'm looking for like an icon section. You know what? Let's save that question because I will be creating an icon section later, and I'll point out the differences on how you can control that better. But there are some fields that will allow you to hide the UI section name here. Or if you had like an icon section name that was showing up, you can also choose to hide that as well. So you can control which one you'd want to show, or you can show both. Yeah, but if you want to change your UI section name for my request, I will just go to the Apple launcher, right? I would open up homepage, which is the For Me tab. And then I would open up the UI section for my request. And this is being controlled by title. Not sure why it's not letting me change the title. It's another finicky one.
Is it a scope?
No, I think it's just grayed out. That's weird. They really not allow me to change my request. I guess a workaround would be to create a new UI section and just to insert the My Request applet again. That's kind of a funny workaround, but that is something that could be done. So what I'm talking about is if I switch into this correct scope, ServiceNow, app screens, and applet launchers.
Yeah.
And I can insert a new row here, right? So we can call this, we'll create a new section. It's an item type. We'll click create new. Oh, you know what? I guess that was a good question because I think this title is just inheriting whatever the applet name is. So I bet you if I were to change the name of the applet, which is this right here, the destination screen. If I change this, my request, I'll click save, and I would expect the title here to change. Did not.
So let's go back to the section and see.
Request. I'm not sure where this is inheriting. That's weird. Let me think. But if we were to create a new item section, see, it doesn't give you an opportunity to change title. But if you were to select the request by me, it then inherits the title. So it looks like if you were to change the title, it's not updating on the back end. And I'm pretty sure that's actually not working as expected. But now if I click submit, you would have a new title screen. So if I refresh. Oh, whoops, I forgot to click update. Yeah, so now you have my request by me.
Awesome. There's another question that's very similar to what you did last week was, can we pick and choose categories to display on mobile?
The question was, can we choose and pick what categories that we want to display for mobile?
Yeah.
Yes. So Charlie, if you can actually send the link to the chat, we actually did a deep dive on how you can configure that on the last Mobile App Academy. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to move on to the next couple of configurations, but that should be able to answer your question if you just check out that video. Okay. All right, so moving on to the third use case is just aligning our KBs. There's one thing that I want to point out, but what we did for service catalogs is going to be very similar to what we do for our knowledge bases. If we take a look at our Now Mobile client, I'm currently only seeing my IT KBs. So that would indicate to me, if I'm also expecting HR KBs to roll through, I would first go to Now Mobile on my instance and make sure that they're mapped properly, right? So if you have various different knowledge bases across the organization, just make sure that they're currently mapped to the MESP portal. I'm seeing that this trigger is currently set to false, so I just have to set this to true. Go into the correct scope, set to active, and then I should expect to see my HR KBs. And now I see a new category for HR and some KBs in here. Okay. The limitation that I do want to mention here is, unfortunately, there's no way to organize your KBs as of today. Although you could reorder your service catalogs with that new properties window, it didn't take into consideration for knowledge bases. But the internal Now Mobile team is aware about this, and they're currently working on it. And the introduction of those parent level categories in the future should be able to help you differentiate your KBs between different departments. But in the meantime, it will just expose all the KBs that you have access to. And it doesn't really have to be a bad thing either, though, right? If you're just trying to build a consolidated employee self-service experience, employees shouldn't have to determine whether the KBs live in IT or if it lives in HR. You might actually be just creating a more fragmented and frustrating experience for those end employees. At the end of the day, they're just looking for some KBs to find information about something. And they really shouldn't be spending minutes just to figure out where that KB lives, right? Okay. So the last thing I want to show for today is how we can migrate additional use cases from our portal experiences. There might be things on your IT portal today that the out-of-the-box Now Mobile client doesn't cover, or maybe something from HR portal. So it's really figuring out what those major use cases that are important on mobile and exposing them. So let's first take a look at our employee service center again, for example. And you can imagine this to be any portal for any different department. But here you can see that this employee portal has knowledge, it has catalogs, it has my to-dos, requests, cart, and pretty much all the things that you already find on the Now Mobile client out of the box today. But there might be some custom widgets that you built that are extremely important to your end users that you might want to expose. And we'll use this org chart, for example. If we click into this, it will take us to a widget that shows you your current organization chart. And if you watch our Mobile App Academy on building native versus web, which Charlie can share the link in the chat, you've learned that there's definitely ways to expose this on your native clients, but it might not be the most ideal experience on mobile. If we don't have any native templates to support it today, but sometimes customers might have widgets with lots of custom scripts that aren't supported, but they still want to show it on mobile. So what would that look like if we did it anyways? So For this example, what we're going to do is we're going to put this My Org Chart widget on the For Me tab as a vertical icon section. And it's going to show up on the very top for App Launcher. And to do this, first, we're going to create a URL applet. And since Now Mobile, you can't configure it using Mobile Studio, we'll have to do this on the Now Platform UI. So on the left-hand nav of our instance, we're going to first create a new applet with the type of URL. So let's look up applet, and we're going to create a new one. And the screen type is going to be browser screen. So in Studio, you would see this as a URL applet type, but on the backend in Platform UI, it's named browser screen. So we'll go and select that and click OK. Let's name this My Org Chart. We'll give it an icon. I'm going to use a pre-existing one on my instance. That's called My Team User. And for the URL, we're going to copy and paste the URL of this widget here that we see on our Employee Service Center. This is something that we want to expose on mobile. So we're going to copy and paste the URL of this widget here. But a useful tip that I want to mention here is anytime you're configuring URL applets and it's pointing to a service portal page, you might want to actually consider pointing it to the mobile employee service portal so that your web responsive page is rendered in the best format possible for a mobile screen. It's going to look and feel native, so your end users aren't pinching and zooming just to see the information that they need. So to do that in the relative URL, all we have to do is change this ESC, Employee Service Center, to MESP. And if I were to go to this page, you can see that it's resizing it and formatting it so that it best fits on your mobile screen. So let's actually copy and paste this URL instead. And we'll put it in our URL field and then click submit. So that's our URL applet. Now we just have to put it on our applet launcher. So on the left hand of our instance, let's open up applet launchers. And we want to put it here, right? And we're going to put it at the very top of the For Me tab. So we're going to open up homepage, applet launcher. And we're going to create a new UI section. I'm going to create a UI section of icon type. We'll give this a name. We'll call this My Org Chart. We'll select the URL applet that we just created, which is My Org. And then this is going to be a vertical icon section. We don't want to display the feed count since there's only one applet. Anytime you're configuring URL applets, the feed count doesn't really matter. And then we'll click submit. So now if I save this applet launcher and refresh our mobile screen, we should now see our org chart. So if I open this up, since this is, a web page, it's not loading it in the fastest way possible. But, if this is something that you must have on mobile, this is a workaround to expose it, right? And I can still interact with all the things that are on this widget, right? And it looks and feel native. It might not have like the most ideal viewing experiences, right? So this is like kind of bunched up. But this is kind of something that you can do if necessary. And you can see that some of these buttons are still native too, right? If I wanted to email David Liu, it would still take me to my email box. Or if I wanted to call with this call button, that's something that is native as well. Okay. So that pretty much wraps up everything that I want to cover for today to building a consolidated employee self-service experience for Now Mobile. Any questions? Are there any questions that we want to highlight?
I mean, there are quite a bit. I mean, they're to highlight. One is here's an example. Can ServiceNow integrate with SuccessFactors so that they can port org charts and employee in from SuccessFactor. So basically, you have an external data that sits somewhere else. So typically how it's done is that our mobile application can only query a table on your instance, right? And if you have data that's external, the best way to do it is to use a remote table. Now, remote table is something, it's not new, but I think it came out in New York, I think. And it allows you to dynamically generate a table where you can create a script and you can fetch data outside of your instance and pull it in, and then it becomes local to mobile, and then mobile can use a data item to query that. So look up remote tables. We have examples on how to do that, but you can pull any data from anywhere. But yeah, I think there's a lot of questions, but I think we've tried to answer as best as we can. I don't think we just have time to answer all right now.
Were there any other questions that we can that are unanswered so far? We have a few more minutes that we can kind of go through.
Sure.
Let's go through a couple more if we can.
Okay. Can we edit the list view for catalog categories and catalog items to represent fields as needed?
Can we configure the?
Can we edit the list field, a view? So basically, we have catalog items, and they want to edit the list view. So you know how you have browse services?
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking they want to be able to edit those services, catalog items and categories.
Oh, so basically these fields are here?
Yes.
Right here, okay. Yeah, so it's not kind of the same concept of how we went to the master item, right? So this is just the master item of this is a list screen, right? This is a list applet. And this list applet contains a master item. And this master item belongs to the browse services applet. So I would just go there, right? So this belongs in services, applet launcher, and the services app launcher, you want to open up the browse services UI section, which contains your browse services list applet, right? And we'll just keep going through the same process of what we showed earlier. Go into the item stream segment, go into the item stream, and then into the master item. And here you would just go into your item view. Oh, and there's a read-only protection policy. If there's a protection policy, that is difficult. Okay, so I think the best route here then is to go through our idea portal. And I don't know why they would put a protection policy here, but we should give customers the ability to configure these fields if they wanted to. But right now, I think the only way is if you open up a ticket with support, they would have like main access, which would allow them to configure those fields for you. But since there's a read-only protection policy, it currently won't allow you to do that.
Great. Okay, so we have another question. Can only public KB articles be shown on the app? The public ones are for end users, and KB for row ITIL are for IT support staff. Currently, we have all KB articles shown up on the app. Can it be restricted as needed?
That would be a great enhancement that should be submitted through our idea portal. I'm not aware of a filter that allows you to do that for mobile today, but there is probably something that you could do to make that work, but it might take some work to get it to happen. So I think the best approach is right now just to make sure that you open up that submit your idea on the idea portal, and we can kind of look into it more for the next release.
Yeah, I think like the other thing you should look at is because KBs are displayed based on roles. And currently, when you go to like the agent app, by default allows you for ITIL. So if you want to make it public, you would probably have to modify the roles. It's all about the roles, right? So if you add the IT role in your KB, then it would show up.
It's not quite that simple too, though, because there's a lot of protection policies that the HR team or the CSM team put on the KB applet, and so you're not even able to touch some of those things.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
I think the only route is to go through the idea portal.
Okay, good to know.
Mhm.
See, is user, I don't know what this is. I'm not sure what this chat is. Is user citizen honored in Now Mobile?
User citizen, is that like a role?
I'm not exactly sure.
Not sure. If we want to unmute them, we'll stay on for another couple minutes. And then for any other question that we couldn't get to, make sure to check out our mobile community site where you can continue asking some of those questions, and we'll definitely try to follow up where we can. Okay. If that person that asked that question around user citizen, let's try to unmute them and see if they're still here.
Sure. So find
And we'll take this as the last question before we move on to closing. And we'll try to answer as many mobile community after.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, sorry, it's my dyslexia. I meant to say user criterion. So whether it be for a category, whether it be for an item, whether it be for a knowledge article, is user criterion honored within the mobile app?
So that would be applied by the roles, but so roles you can apply at applet levels, and for actions and functions. But since a lot of this stuff was built on web screens, it makes it a bit trickier to kind of control those roles.
So, for example, you have a category that is restricted by a role, but you've used your user criterion to do that. Would that category show up regardless?
You know what? Can you possibly post that question on the mobile community site?
Yeah, of
And
course.
I'm going to follow up with that internal team to make sure we get the right answer for that.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer off the top of my head at this point.
No problem.
Yep.
That's cool.
Okay. All right. So we are a little past time. So let's go ahead and close out for today. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you found this session informative and helpful. If you do have any further questions, definitely reach out and ask our mobile community site, or you can keep asking us any questions. And you'll also find our extensive list of self-amendment resources, as well as our past mobile academies there as well. So make sure to subscribe to our mobile community forums, because that's our main channel of communication for all news, announcements, and updates. And a reminder is we do have Knowledge 2021 that will be taking place in 2 weeks. And so we'll be taking a break from Mobile App Academy. But until then, please continue following our mobile community site for the latest dates and information. Thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time.